Have you ever heard the saying that history is written by the victors? It's a phrase that suggests truth is merely the story told by the side that wins. Well, in the sprawling, brutal universe of Game of Thrones, would you believe me if I told you that the entire fate of Westeros, the lives of millions, and the line of succession to the Iron Throne were all decided by a single, desperate sword fight in the middle of nowhere? What? Seriously. Let's journey back to the final days of Robert's rebellion, to a lonely tower in the mountains of Dorne, a place called the Tower of Joy. Here, a young Lord Eddard Stark and his northern companions faced off against the three remaining knights of the old Kingsguard, arguably the finest warriors in the realm. In the show and the books, Ned Stark and his crannogman friend, Howland Reed, are the only two who walk away from that bloody confrontation, and they walk away with a baby who would be hidden away and raised as the bastard Jon Snow, his true identity a secret so dangerous that Ned would carry it to his grave. And that one secret, that one promise, would change the course of history. Now, obviously, I'm leaving out a few key details about prophecies and dragons, but it all comes back to that one pivotal fight that Ned Stark supposedly won. But imagine for a moment that he didn't. Imagine if the history we know was the lie. How profoundly different would the Game of Thrones timeline be? Well, that's precisely what we're here to find out. Welcome to Visions of Valyria, a channel where I make a change somewhere in the Song of Ice and Fire and see how that one change ripples throughout the entire universe. And before we get started, if you could leave a like on this video to support the channel and even consider subscribing to stay up to date with the latest content, I'd appreciate it. And while you're at it, comment down below your favorite knight from the Kingsguard and why, just so I know it's real. But now let's get into it. The vow at the Broken Tower. After a brutal, desperate battle, the red sands of Dorne are soaked with the blood of heroes. It all comes down to two men left standing, Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, and Lord Eddard Stark of Winterfell. Dawn, the most famous sword in the world, a blade forged from the heart of a fallen star, is a blur of white light in Arthur's hands. In our timeline, history tells us that Ned won, thanks to a desperate last-minute intervention from a wounded Howland Reed. Ned then climbs the tower, finds his beloved sister Lyanna dying in a bed of blood, and she makes him promise to protect her newborn son. But in this timeline, we're changing one crucial thing. There's no surprise attack. There's no cry for help from a wounded friend. It is a true and honest duel between the quiet wolf and the legendary swordsman, and the fight is over almost before it begins. Arthur is simply on another level, a master of his craft. He moves with a grace that Ned, for all his northern grit, cannot match. With a fluid, almost sorrowful motion, he disarms the Lord of Winterfell, placing the ice-pale tip of dawn right at his throat. He has won, but he does not deliver the killing blow. Perhaps he sees the unwavering honor in Ned's eyes, a reflection of his own. Or perhaps, more likely, he hears a woman's cry from the tower above, Lyanna's cry. In that moment, he makes a choice. He lets Ned live, but with a heavy condition. Ned must ride away, swear an oath on his honor that he will tell the world that everyone here, Lyanna and her child included, perished. A heartbroken Ned, defeated and shamed, has no choice but to agree and ride north with a failure that will haunt him for the rest of his days. So Arthur ascends the stairs alone. He finds Lyanna, her life fading with every shallow breath. In her arms is a baby boy, small and perfect, with the dark hair of the Starks and the unmistakable violet eyes of old Valyria. With her last ounce of strength, she gives the boy to Arthur. "His name is Aegon," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "You must protect him. Promise me, Arthur. Promise me." And in that moment, as Lyanna Stark breathes her last, Sir Arthur Dayne's life is given a new purpose. His king is dead, his prince is dead, and the Targaryen dynasty has been shattered. All of his old vows have turned to ash, but a new one rises in their place. His duty is now to this tiny baby, the last son of the dragon. His first problem, however, is immense: survival. Westeros is now Robert Baratheon's kingdom, a land crawling with men who would kill a Targaryen baby without a second thought. Arthur cannot go to King's Landing, and he certainly cannot go north. His only safe harbor is to go home, to Starfall in Dorne. Traveling only by the darkest of nights, disguised as a common traveler, Arthur makes his way south. He arrives at Starfall to find his sister, Ashara Dayne, a woman who, in our timeline, tragically throws herself from a tower out of grief. But here, seeing her legendary brother alive, holding a secret innocent child, gives her a new reason to live. Together, they craft the cover story. It is simple, tragic, and, most importantly, believable. Lord Stark won the duel, but Lyanna and her child died in the aftermath. Sir Arthur was the sole grief-stricken survivor. Overwhelmed by loss, he returned home with a bastard son of his own, a boy he sorrowfully names Jon Snow. And because Dorne is famously independent and secretive, it becomes the perfect place to hide a dragon in plain sight. The Sun's Son. In the world we know, Jon Snow grew up in the cold, gray north of Winterfell. He was a constant outsider, forever feeling the sting of being a bastard, most sharply from Catelyn Stark. His entire identity was forged in the fires of not belonging, a loneliness that ultimately pushed him to seek a family at the Night's Watch. But this Jon Snow, grows up under the blistering Dornish sun. His world isn't snow and ancient castles. It's vibrant markets, shimmering sand, the endless sea, and the scent of spice on the wind. Crucially, he is not an outsider. In Dorne, being a bastard carries little of the stigma it does in the other 6 kingdoms. He is known as the Ward of the legendary Sword of the Morning, and that title alone earns him a measure of respect few could dream of. Raised in the beautiful castle of Starfall, he isn't just tolerated, he is loved. And his father figure? It's Sir Arthur Dayne. Just imagine that. Jon isn't learning swordplay from some household master-at-arms. He's being trained by the man who was universally considered the deadliest swordsman of his generation. But Arthur doesn't just teach Jon how to fight. He teaches him why one should fight. He instills a rigorous code of honor, duty, and justice in him, filling his head with the noble tales of the Kingsguard and the tragic history of the Targaryens from a loyalist perspective. He is unknowingly molding Jon into a king. His aunt, Ashara Dayne, provides the warmth and motherly love he never would have known from Catelyn, teaching him about politics, diplomacy, history, and the subtle art of reading people. And then there are the Martells. As the ward of House Dayne, it's only natural that Jon would spend time in Sunspear with Prince Doran's family. He likely spars with a young, wild, and brilliant Oberyn Martell, who teaches him a faster, more fluid style of combat. He becomes a close friend and confidant to Dorne's own children. He is, for all intents and purposes, a part of the Dornish royal family. Now, Arthur is honorable, but he is not a fool. He knows he cannot protect this secret alone. He needs powerful friends who share his loyalties. So, in the dead of night, he confides in Prince Doran Martell. And Doran, whose hatred for the Lannisters burns hotter than the Dornish sun, sees Jon as the divine instrument of his revenge for his murdered sister, Elia, and her children. He sees a true Westeros-raised Targaryen heir, not a desperate exile across the sea. He begins to make his patient, meticulous plans, content to wait years, even decades, for the perfect moment to strike. This upbringing creates a fundamentally different person. This Jon isn't the brooding, quiet boy who seeks exile at the wall. He is confident, charismatic, and possesses the silent intensity of the Starks mixed with the fiery passion of Dorne. He is a peerless swordsman. He understands the Game of Thrones, and being a bastard doesn't define him. If anything, it motivates him to prove he is worthy of the name Dayne. In Dorne, he is their champion, the Sun's Son, Ward of the Sword of the Morning. He is a leader in waiting, being secretly prepared for a destiny he knows nothing about. The ripples north and east. While Jon thrives in the sun-drenched south, the ripples of his survival spread across the rest of the kingdoms, shaping the world in unseen ways. Up in the north, Ned Stark returns to Winterfell a broken man. In our timeline, he carried the heavy burden of a secret promise. In this one, he carries the crushing weight of utter failure. He failed to save his sister, he failed to win the duel, and he failed to bring his nephew home to safety. This guilt consumes him, making him even more somber and withdrawn than the man we knew. Every time Robert Baratheon raises a glass and curses the Targaryens, Ned feels that shame anew, knowing a true Targaryen prince is out there, being raised by the very man who defeated him. This silent grief strains his relationship with everyone, even Catelyn, who can't understand the source of his unending sorrow. Robert's reign proceeds just as it did in our timeline. He drinks, he hunts, and he steadily bankrupts the kingdom, all while nursing his pathological hatred of Targaryens. He believes them to be extinct, never suspecting that the vengeful principality of Dorne is hiding the one person in the world he wants dead most of all. And across the narrow sea, Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen are still struggling, wandering from one free city to another, poor and desperate. They believe themselves to be the last of their line, the sole hope for their dynasty's restoration. This creates a fascinating layer of dramatic irony. While Viserys schemes to marry off his sister to a Dothraki warlord in exchange for a savage army, Prince Doran is sitting on a much stronger, more legitimate claim. Doran might even secretly feed information to Varys to keep the crown's attention fixed on Essos, using the Beggar King as the perfect distraction, all while he cultivates a battle-trained, Westerosi-born Targaryen who is ready to lead. Dany's entire incredible journey, her dragons, her rise in Essos, is happening in a complete vacuum, without her ever knowing she has a cousin who could be her greatest ally or her most formidable rival. The dragon revealed. Years pass. Jon is now a young man, a warrior whose reputation for skill and honor is known throughout Dorne. He is respected, admired, but he still carries questions in his heart. He knows deep down that the name Jon Sand isn't truly his, and he feels a strange, inexplicable pull to the cold north, a land he has only heard about in Arthur's stories. On his 16th name day, Arthur decides the time has come. He takes Jon to the top of the Palestone Sword Tower in Starfall, which looks out over the summer sea. There, he tells him everything. He pulls out Dawn, the legendary blade gleaming in the sunlight, and explains the solemn promise he made to Jon's dying mother, Lyanna Stark. He tells him of his father, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, not the monster from Robert Baratheon's stories, but a noble, thoughtful, and beloved prince who was cherished by the people. And he tells him about his mother, the she-wolf of Winterfell, and the love that started a war. "You are not Jon Sand," Arthur says, his voice heavy with the weight of 16 years. "You are the son of the dragon and the wolf. Your name is Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne." The revelation shatters Jon's world. His entire life, his very identity, has been a carefully constructed lie designed to keep him safe. But he is not the frightened boy from our timeline who reacted with fear and denial. He was raised by Sir Arthur Dayne, who taught him that honor and duty are a man's highest calling. He sees this revelation not as a prize, but as a profound responsibility. He finally understands why he always felt different, why he felt a destiny pulling at him. He is the Song of Ice and Fire, and he realizes, with chilling clarity, that he has been training his entire life for this exact moment, even if he never knew it. A new Game of Thrones. The catalyst that ignites the realm arrives just as it did in our world. A raven lands in Sunspear, bearing the news that King Robert Baratheon is dead. Joffrey has taken the throne, Lord Eddard Stark has been arrested for treason, and the War of the Five Kings has begun. In his chambers in Sunspear, Doran Martell allows himself a small, patient smile. His 15-year plan is finally ripe for the harvest. While Stannis Baratheon, Renly Baratheon, and Robb Stark are all declaring themselves king, Doran calls his banners. He gathers his lords, and in the shadow of the Spear Tower, he reveals the realm's greatest secret. Sir Arthur Dayne steps forward, his presence commanding absolute silence. Next to him stands Jon, now embracing his identity as Aegon Targaryen. In Dorne, and indeed across the Seven Kingdoms, Arthur Dayne's word is bond. He was there. He raised the boy. For the Dornish lords, who despise the Lannisters with a fiery passion, this is the moment they have waited for. They unite behind Aegon instantly and enthusiastically. But Dorne knows Dorne alone is not enough. Jon, now stepping into his role as a leader, becomes the face of their cause. He is not a foreign invader with a Dothraki horde. He is Westerosi, born and bred. He has the Targaryen name, but the honorable, familiar look of the Starks. Guided by Arthur's military genius and Dorne's political cunning, they begin to build their alliance. First, they turn to the Stormlands. After Renly's mysterious death, their lords are leaderless and divided. Aegon and Arthur ride to them directly. Aegon's charisma, combined with Arthur's legendary status as a former brother-in-arms to Sir Barristan Selmy, wins them over. Next, the Reach. The ambitious Tyrells are always looking to back a winner, and Aegon, with the full might of Dorne and the Stormlands behind him, looks like a very strong bet. An offer to marry the lovely Margaery Tyrell to King Aegon seals the deal, securing their massive army and vast resources. The final, most crucial piece is the North. In this timeline, the wounded Howland Reed also survived the Tower of Joy, spared by Arthur alongside Ned. When news reaches Robb Stark's camp that a Targaryen claimant has risen in the south, Howland Reed travels to Robb. He reveals the full truth of what happened that day, that Lyanna Stark's son is alive. This isn't an enemy, it's family. Robb realizes this is a path to victory that doesn't require him to secede, but to reclaim the entire kingdom for his own blood. The king in the north bends the knee, and the armies of ice and fire join together to march on their common enemy, the Lannisters, the sword and the dragon. The march on King's Landing is an unstoppable flood. The combined armies of Dorne, the North, the Reach, and the Stormlands overwhelm the Lannister forces. Tywin is outmaneuvered, his forces stretched too thin. The capital is completely surrounded and isolated. The battle for the city is brutal, but mercifully quick. Aegon, leading from the front, is the warrior king Arthur always trained him to be. He fights with discipline and purpose, giving strict orders to his troops to spare the small folk and avoid the wanton destruction that characterized the Lannister sack of the city a generation earlier. The climax takes place inside the Red Keep. In the throne room, Sir Arthur Dayne finally comes face to face with Sir Jaime Lannister. It is the duel that poets will sing of for 1,000 years. The Sword of the Morning versus the Kingslayer. Jaime is brilliant, a prodigy with a sword, but Arthur is a living legend. After a breathtaking fight that leaves the onlooker speechless, Arthur disarms him, but he does not kill him. Instead, he offers him a chance at redemption. "The Kingsguard is broken," he says, his voice echoing in the hall. "Help me rebuild it. Find your honor again." Meanwhile, Aegon finds Queen Cersei in Maegor's holdfast, a vial of poison in her hand, ready to kill her son Tommen, rather than let him fall into enemy hands. But Aegon is not there for vengeance. He offers her mercy, not for her sake, but for the sake of the realm. She is stripped of her power and given a choice: a life of quiet penance with the Silent Sisters, or a comfortable exile at Casterly Rock. He is showing all of Westeros that he is not a mad king, nor a vengeful one. He is something new. The King of Ice and Fire. With the Lannisters defeated, Jon is crowned King Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name. His first act is to name his Hand of the King, Sir Arthur Dayne. The appointment is a symbol of a new era of honor and justice for the Seven Kingdoms. His small council is filled with his loyal allies. Robb Stark is named Warden of the North, Oberyn Martell is given a seat to represent Dorne, and a Lord of the Reach is named Master of Coin. King Aegon's reign begins with healing the fractured kingdom. He issues a royal pardon for all highborn bastards, ending the very stigma he was lucky enough to avoid. This act alone earns him the fierce loyalty of thousands across the land. And because he has the blood of the Starks, he takes the frantic warnings from the Night's Watch seriously from the very beginning and begins sending massive amounts of men, grain, and steel to the wall. So what about Daenerys? She is across the sea, has hatched her 3 dragons, and is beginning her revolutionary campaign in Slaver's Bay. King Aegon sends a royal delegation to her, led by his aunt Ashara. The message they carry is not a threat, but an invitation. He recognizes her as his aunt, the mother of dragons and his only living family. He invites her to come home to Westeros, not as a challenger, but as his partner in rebuilding their house and healing the world. He offers her the ancestral seat of Dragonstone as her own and asks her to stand with him, not bend the knee. This sets the stage for a tense but hopeful family reunion, not a second Dance of the Dragons. The Great War. Just as the realm begins to breathe a sigh of relief, the true threat arrives. Ravens from the Wall bring terrifying news. An army of the dead, led by the Night King, is marching south. In our timeline, the Southern Lords dismiss these warnings as the ramblings of a frozen watch. But this king listens. King Aegon understands immediately that the Game of Thrones was just a deadly distraction from the real war. He does what Jon Snow could only dream of doing. He unites all 7 kingdoms for the Great War. From the shores of Dorne to the forests of the north, everyone answers the call of the Dragon Wolf King. And just in time, Daenerys arrives, intrigued by her nephew's honorable invitation and alarmed by the scale of the threat. She brings her 3 dragons and her battle-hardened, unsullied army. The dragons of the east have joined the Dragon Wolf of the west. The war against the dead is apocalyptic, a nightmare of ice and fire. In the heart of the fighting, King Aegon wields Dawn, the pale blade glowing with an ethereal light in the cold, shattering White Walkers with every swing. He fights alongside Daenerys and her dragons, a king who is truly the embodiment of ice and fire. The climax comes during the long night at Winterfell. The Night King himself is moving on Bran, and the only person standing in his way is an older but no less formidable Sir Arthur Dayne. He fights with impossible grace, a whirlwind of Valyrian steel, cutting down walker after walker to protect his king, the boy he raised. In a final heroic act of sacrifice, Arthur throws himself in front of an ice spear meant for Aegon. He falls, but he bought his king the few seconds he needed. Aegon, filled with a terrible grief and a cold rage, takes on the Night King in one last epic duel. It's dragon fire against ancient cold, the living against the dead. Aegon's peerless skill, forged by Arthur, combined with his fierce Stark and Targaryen heritage, is just enough. He finds an opening and strikes the final blow, shattering the Night King and ending the long night for good. Arthur dies in Aegon's arms. His last words are a faint whisper. "You are the sword of the morning now." You kept the promise. He had fulfilled his vow. He saved Lyanna's son, and in doing so, he saved the entire world. King Aegon Targaryen I, the Dragon Wolf, led his people into a new dawn. He ruled as a unifier, and with Daenerys as his trusted partner, he rebuilt the 7 kingdoms on a foundation of justice and honor. He was remembered in the histories as Aegon the Unifier, the King of Ice and Fire, and the Sword of the Morning Reborn. In his later years, he would often visit the white marble tomb of Sir Arthur Dayne and reflect on the man who defeated his uncle in order to save his life. The man who taught him that the best kings aren't simply born to power, but are forged in the fires of honor, sacrifice, and love. But now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this alternate Westeros? Would a Jon Snow raised by Arthur Dayne have been a better king? Is there anything that you'd change? Whatever it is, let me know down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to respond.